Is that really achievable?
I think we can take great comfort from what the NHS has done over the last year and a half, and certainly what I see across the NHS is a huge number of people pulling out absolutely all the stops to do the right thing for their patients.
Vaccines are not our only defence against Omicron. Face masks are now compulsory again in shops and on public transport in the whole of the UK, and some travel restrictions have been reinstated. One government health advisor, though, suggested reducing our social contacts could help curb the spread further.
Prime Minister, should people be taking your advice or the advice of one of your scientific advisors who said we should be limiting unnecessary social contacts? Can you see why people are confused?
The guidance remains the same. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't take sensible precautions, and everybody should continue, for instance, to wash your hands and make sure that you have good ventilation. And I'm still confident that this Christmas will be considerably better than last Christmas.
To underline that message, he hosted a food and drink fair in Downing Street and told others not to cancel events. In 3 weeks' time, we will no doubt know whether that advice was enough. Emily Morgan, ITV News.
New rules for the compulsory wearing of face masks in shops and public transport came into force in England today. They also apply to a range of venues, including hairdressers, estate agents and takeaways. But pubs and restaurants are not currently included, which some critics say is illogical and confusing. Our North of England reporter Hannah Miller saw how people in Manchester have reacted.
Solange will do anything she can to keep her nail salon open for business, including, from today, making sure that customers wear masks.
Business is suffering so badly because of COVID. We need to look after us and look after the health of others as well. I think that's the bottom line.
From today, face coverings are required in England in all shops, beauty salons, takeaways and even estate agents. They're also mandatory in taxis and on public transport. But you don't have to wear one at indoor bars and restaurants, nor at cinemas and theatres. If they're caught, those who don't comply face a fine of £200, with repeat offenders facing penalties up to £6,400. But today, some of the country's biggest supermarkets said they won't be enforcing the rules.
We saw in early lockdowns that the enforcement of social distancing rules, face masks, one-way systems, that was a flashpoint for violence and abuse. We won't refuse entry for customers who aren't wearing a mask, and we won't refuse to serve people who aren't wearing a mask. Enforcement of these regulations are for the police, but not for shop workers.
And while many were putting masks on the bus today, some were struggling to keep covered up, and we saw others getting off the bus not wearing one at all. Do you mind me asking why you're not wearing a mask?
To be honest, I'd forgotten.
Just because.
Do you not want to wear one?
No.
Do you not think it puts people at risk if you're not wearing one?
I don't know.
Do you mind me asking why you're not wearing a mask?
Not really. I've got one.
But some indoor venues do question whether the rules should go further. Would you prefer your customers to be wearing masks?
I think it would be better for us on the other side of the bar, our staff. We are in a public space. You know, with the consumption of alcohol, people get a bit...
And as the festive season looms, many are hoping the new rules will help keep life as normal as possible. The return of a different kind of must-have accessory for Christmas this year. Hannah Miller, ITV News, Manchester.
And another development today. Every Briton travelling back from abroad will now have to isolate while they wait for PCR test results. New government rules say anyone travelling back to the UK from anywhere will have to get a PCR test before the end of their second day back and self-isolate until they test negative. Anyone who isn't fully vaccinated will have to quarantine for 10 days. So it is all happening, and our political editor, Robert Preston, is here. First of all, let's start with this vaccine programme. Government's putting full faith, isn't it, into the booster vaccine?
Yeah, and this is a massive step up in the vaccination programme. The boss of the NHS, Amanda Pritchard, said this is far and away the biggest change that they've had so far in the vaccination programme. And as you heard from Emily, somewhere between 35 and 40 million shots will be offered if it all goes to plan by the end of January. Now, the thing that upsets, I think, many people is, of course, that when you devote NHS resources to putting vaccinations in people's arms, there's all sorts of other care that they simply can't provide. We've got a backlog, we've got people not able to see their GPs. That is only going to get worse as a result of this vaccination programme, which shows actually quite the cost we are paying to shore up our defences against Omicron.
And on a sort of connected issue, what about what some people say are mixed messages about whether or not you can have contact with people, close contact, social events running up to Christmas? What do you think?
Well, look, we've had Jenny Harries, who's been with us all the way through as a very senior medic advising the government. She now runs UK HSA, the Safety and Security Agency, which runs Test and Trace. And she urged all of us to cut out unnecessary socialising. She raised the possibility of working from home being recommended again. The Prime Minister doesn't like this, but what it shows is the extent to which the medical establishment are looking at what's happening in South Africa, seeing this virus surging faster than Delta was surging, and worrying that this will put untenable pressure on the NHS as hospital cases they fear will rise. OK,
Robert, thank you. OK, well, let's move on to other news now. And a man has been convicted of acting as head of propaganda for the banned neo-Nazi group National Action. Ben Raymond co-founded the racist terror group in 2013 and then helped it change into a new group when it was originally banned by the government. Rupert Evelyn has more.
He promoted hatred through the organisation he co-founded. Ben Raymond enticed others to join National Action from his position as head of propaganda. He was the public face of the far-right extremist group, using his position to call for ethnic cleansing, even coining the phrase white jihad. Taking a leading role at a demonstration in Liverpool in 2016, Raymond gave a speech threatening to gas traitors. Later that year, National Action was banned under terror legislation. But Ben Raymond continued to share his unapologetically racist beliefs. His role in the far-right movement is considered by those who watch these groups to be pivotal.
He was the public face of an organisation that behind the scenes, away from public scrutiny, was organising for terrorism, was organising to kill people. And the court was right. The court was shown the thousands and thousands of documents that he had promoting terrorism, promoting ethnic cleansing.
We have significantly dismantled National Action. 16 people have been convicted of being a member of that prescribed terrorist group, and we never kind of rest on our laurels here.
Containing and convicting these extremists requires sustained resources. National Action may have been banned and its co-founder is now facing jail, but the ideology behind it continues to proliferate, spreading a message of hate. Bringing down Ben Raymond is significant. He fuelled a vicious cause for which he will be sent to prison. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News, Bristol.
The first witness in the sex trafficking trial of the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell took the stand in a New York courtroom today. Lawrence Vysotsky was a pilot who worked for Maxwell's boyfriend, the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. He told the court he had piloted planes with Prince Andrew. Our US correspondent Emma Murphy is outside the court in New York City. So, Emma, what did the jury then hear today?
Well, the jury heard a picture of the life that Ghislaine Maxwell lived with Jeffrey Epstein, hearing from that pilot who'd flown with them over 2 decades, more than 1,000 flights. He was asked to explain to the court what his role was, and he said that it was to fly them between the different properties in different parts of the world. Now, the jet that he piloted was nicknamed the Lolita Express because it became clear in previous court cases that Jeffrey Epstein had used this jet to move women and girls around the country so that he could use them for sex. We also heard that on board that plane had been a number of very famous figures, and that's why the pilot had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Amongst those people was Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, so quite a spectacular guest list. He was asked, though, about the young women who had travelled on that plane, who said that they had been moved around that way by Ghislaine Maxwell, and he said he didn't imagine that any of them had been underage, and he never saw any sign of sexual activity activity. However, he admitted that he was not always in the main cabin, obviously, as the pilot. Ghislaine Maxwell denies all 6 charges against her, and this case will continue into the afternoon.
OK, Emma Murphy in New York City, thank you. The Queen's standard was lowered for the final time in Barbados last night, marking the moment the Caribbean island became a republic. It ends 400 years of ties with the British Crown, but it also represents a chance to move on from its past. Prince Charles reflected on that at the ceremony, calling slavery the appalling atrocity which he said forever stains our history. From Barbados, here's our royal editor.